So Doc, welcome to the show. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and why you did the book.
Thanks for having me on. Well, the book I've been working on for a long time, a ridiculously long amount of time. The Mojave Phone Booth was taken out in the year 2000. So,
wow.
And I probably started on this about 5 years after that, but it's just, you know how projects will do. If you don't give yourself a specific deadline, they just go on and on.
Right.
So I finally got it out last month, June of 2018.
Okay. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and, how you came to, find your, way to writing a book.
Well, I guess I should just tell you how I got heard about the booth and stuff, because otherwise I wouldn't have read a book about it, obviously. But
right.
I was just working in, the computer world, just doing various very uninteresting tasks. And I was also on the side, I was doing zines. There were a lot of people doing zines back in the 80s, and you'd make a little homemade zine magazine out of, like, you would just photocopy it and paste it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would trade them with people really anywhere in the world.
Right.
So I was doing that, and one of the zines I was trading with was made by a woman named Bon Von Wheelie, and she is in a band called Girl Trouble. She's the drummer,
mm-hmm.
and she has a zine called Wig Out. And so we would trade these back and forth. And as it happened, in 1997, Girl Trouble was going to be playing a couple blocks from my house. So I went to see them, and she gave me the latest copy of Wig Out. So on the way home, I was looking at it, and there was a letter in there from this guy named Nick von Robeson, and he talked about this phone booth that was just way out in the desert, middle of nowhere. And he included the number. And I
mm-hmm.
thought, geez, I have to call that. So as soon as I got home, I just dialed the number, and it rang and rang and rang. And I don't know, I just kind of got hooked. And so I just decided that I would call that number at least once every day. And, I kind of wanted to see if someone would, I thought it would be cool if someone ever answered it. But I also just liked hearing that ringing and knowing that I was making that ringing happen, presumably out in the desert. I just kind of assumed that the guy wasn't lying. And so I just incorporated that into my daily routine. I would just call that number all the time, just listen to it.
Yeah.
And after, it was only about 30 days though, I was calling it one day, and it was busy. And I thought, well, this is weird. I mean, maybe somebody else is calling it at the same time I am. But so I just kept hitting redial, and it was busy. And then it rang. Mm-hmm. And then a woman's voice said, hello. And I said, this is going to sound like a strange question, but are you out in the middle of the desert? She said, in fact, she was. And I asked her, well, why are you out in the middle of the desert? Because, I'd looked on a map, and where this is supposed to have been was way far from anything, any paved roads or anything. And she was working at her family's cinder mine. They'd had the cinder mine going for about, I guess since World War II or so. So we chatted for a little while, and most people that I'd been telling about this phone booth, they just assumed that was going to be the end of it. But no, I just kept calling it every day, just to hear that ringing.
Mm-hmm.
So then the woman's name was Lorene, and I have a website called deuceofclubs.com, and I just would put up anything that interested me. And so I made a page, and I had a transcript of this conversation that we had. And, I thought that would be about the end of it, but it ended up getting into the New York Times, and then from the New York Times, of course, it goes everywhere. And then it just became this big meme. And eventually, after about a year, people were just calling this phone booth from all over the world. And we would go out and visit it, and it would just ring constantly. And you would talk to people from all over the world. And as soon as you hung up, there would go again.
Right.
It was just a whole lot of fun.
So, so you were like one of the first memes to hit the internet in many cases, or to be viral.
Yeah, we didn't even use terms like meme or viral in those days. It just exploded and went nuts.
Now, okay, so I read about the first 75 pages of your book because I was very interested in looking at this. I tried to find the location on a map before you told me just before we started recording here that, you just, Google search for, Mojave Phone Booth and it's there. Why was the booth put out there in the first place? I mean, it's fairly remote. I mean, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, it's about 12 and a half miles from Interstate 15. And it's at a spot in between, like Barstow and Vegas. Just remote desert.
Right.
But I think that different stories are told, but I think what it probably really was, what they call a policy station. There was and I'm not sure if it was California or federal. For some reason, I think it was California. But anyway, there was a law that was trying to get telephone service out to remote people. And this phone line had been put in during World War II as a backup because they were afraid of sabotage because there was just one trunk line coming down California. So they put this one starting out in Washington State on the other side of the Cascade and brought it all the way down to California. So they just put a phone booth on this. And I don't know why there wouldn't have been more. That's the weird thing to me is it seems like if they were pursuing this policy, there'd be lots of places along this line they would have put phone booths, but
wait,
apparently they didn't.
You mean to tell me this phone booth has a line that stretched from the Mojave Desert to Washington State?
Correct.
Well, so I'm
sorry. They didn't put in the phone line so they could have a phone booth there. The phone line was put in World War II as a backup trunk line, so that if the one on the coast was sabotaged, this one would still be there. So it was a main a main line,
right?
But it happened to go right by this mine that Lorene's family had.
Okay.
So they put that phone booth there.
So the very high-pitched chuckles you heard in the background during that last little exchange is Miss Berlin, and she's really wanting to ask a question about why the phone booth is out there. Either that or she's still medicating from her knee. So
I am still medicating, but not the good stuff anymore. I find that super interesting, especially because it's like I'm just assuming they probably had phone service before, like near their house before anyone else in the middle of the desert did.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
It was put out there. It was put out there in the 60s, right? Or you said World War II. You said World War II, right?
That's when the phone line. That's when they actually, put in the phone poles and stretched the line.
Okay.
But the booth itself, nobody seems to know exactly when. About 1960 is what it sounds like.
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Normal phone booths, and for those of you who were born in this century don't know what a phone booth is, think Doctor Who's blue police box, but less nice. And
I mean, there's still phone booths out there.
I have not seen one.
What?
No, they don't have them.
Never in your life?
No, I have seen one because I am old and decrepit, but they don't have them out here anymore. They're gone for the most part because
Yeah.
You need to travel like rural Midwest more often.
maybe I do. So they didn't.
You see them pretty.
Go ahead,
Amanda. Do you see them pretty often?
I'd say maybe, every other month, maybe.
Really?
No fooling.
Yeah.
Huh.
Those are very rare because
small towns have them like in their gas stations or.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I've seen a handful.
Yeah, I know that there was.
We don't hear, not even in small towns. They're just not there anymore.
Yeah, there was a big push to get rid of them because they cost a lot of money to maintain. And the idea was that when people use the pay phone, that would some of the money from that was used to maintain the booth. So so let me go back to the Mojave joint. You were not actually the first person to find it. You said you saw it in the newsletter, the zine that you had found. Mm-hmm. Why do you think you made it popular? Because obviously it was out there for 50 some years.
It was out there, but you have to remember what the internet was like in 1997. There just wasn't that much on the internet.
Right.
And so no one had mentioned this phone booth on the internet. And so I would just put up pages as there were, developments, I guess you'd call them. So like the first time that we went to look for it and we found it and then took pictures of it and stuff, of course, those went up on the internet. And, I had no idea that anybody, I figured it would just be a few hundred people would see it like anybody else saw stuff at Deuce Clubs, just a few hundred people and that'd be it.
Right.
It didn't work out that way.
It would have probably been much different had it have been, in the age of Instagram or, that where you could have taken the photo and then uploaded it and, that kind of thing. So
you would probably take the photo and upload it while you were still there.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So regular telephones, and, forgive me for being ignorant about telephones, they didn't require power. The power came over the same line, right? That's what I understood. And the first phone that was in there was a rotary phone, which, again, for you kids that were born after 1985, we had a dial on it that spun and made the clicking noises that, told the electronic switch, which, the manual switch, which, to route the call. So when did they replace it with the more, the push button phones?
Everybody I talked to out there had a different idea of when it might have been. But before it was rotary, it was even a crank phone. So you would just pick up the phone and you would crank it. That would get you to an operator in San Bernardino, and then you would tell that operator what number you wanted.
Right.
Which was kind of funny because if you wanted to call the Stuckey's, which was at the exit there at I-15, and it's only 12 and a half miles away, but that would be a long distance call.
Wow. Oh, because it was like on the boundary of another leg.
It's going to San Bernardino.
Right. Right.
Well, then, would everything be a long distance call from the middle of the desert?
Yes, it would.
Yeah, it was.
Wowzers.
And then when they got the rotary in there, then they could dial direct.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so you've obviously had some adventures with the phone booth. How many times did you actually go and visit it? Because you did visit it at least once, from what I've seen.
6 times.
6 times in the course of
6 times.
How many years?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah, it just took 3 years before the government stepped in, but we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it was owned by, according to the pictures, it looks like it was owned by Pac Bell, but it was obviously owned before by other telephone companies, regional or otherwise, I would imagine.
Well, originally it was owned by Emerson Ray, who owned the mine. And
okay.
So he would get the bills, and the problem was that anybody who used this phone, they could call long distance, and then he would get the bill. And so he got tired of that pretty soon, and he asked them to take it out.
Right.
But then apparently, I'm not sure if it was the Mining Safety and Health Administration. They wanted them to have a phone because they're running a mine and it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. And then also, I guess some of the area ranchers wanted it there because it was really handy. If you broke down, in the summertime, hiking 12 miles in the summer might do you in.
Right. And you keep mentioning
call somebody.
You keep mentioning a cinder mine. What is a cinder mine?
Well, it's funny because the first time when Lorene answered that first call and said it was a cinder mine, I was like, cinder mine. I said, what do you do with the cinder? She goes, well, you make cinder blocks. And I was like, oh, duh.
Okay.
I had never thought about, well, where do they get the cinders for cinder blocks.
I guess
Only
I
got some
just
cinder
thought
mine.
it was like concrete.
Me too.
I didn't realize it was
I did
anything
too.
specific.
I did too, but it's a lot lighter than concrete, and it's pretty strong. So, so it's a little volcanic field there, about 10,000-year-old volcanic field there.
Right.
So there are these cones. So their family was just mining one of these cones for decades.
Okay, so it was like an extinct volcano, and they were pulling I guess it's the volcanic rock out. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
This is how I get into one of those like YouTube spirals where I'm up until 4 a.m. is now I'm looking at like cinder mines on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
right.
Oh, there's a nice somebody recently put up. They did a flyover with a drone of the actual mine of her family's mine, which the government ran them off of it. So it's just been sitting there and it's dilapidated, but you can get a good view.
That's pretty awesome.
Now, were you able to meet her and like go to the mine and stuff? Or
Well, I never met her until years later because I couldn't really tell when I talked to her. I couldn't really tell if she was just kind of tolerating me or if she was tickled by it, or if she's kind of taciturn. So, but I did meet her in about 2005 or so. We went and met. We had Professor Carty House, and he's another character in the book. He and I drove out to Tehachapi, and we had Thanksgiving with their whole Ray clan. It was a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. So I'm sorry. What was his connection to the whole affair?
He's a friend of mine. He was another person I knew through the zine world.
Okay.
And I've known him now for about 30 years or so. He didn't really get the booth, as he said. He didn't really get the booth thing at first. He was just like, okay, road trip, whatever.
Right.
He didn't really think. I don't know. I guess he didn't think a phone booth in the middle of nowhere was weird or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But then he kind of, once we got there, you couldn't fail to appreciate it.
Right. Right. Okay. So, let's see. You got popular. So 3 years after you made the phone booth popular, it got removed. So you did in 3 years what it took, 65 years to actually make happen?
I felt pretty bad about it. I did.
Well, okay. So
I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I think the real reason it got removed, the reason that the government gave, they said, oh well, it's causing environmental damage or something, which they knew that wasn't true. And I mean, everybody was driving out there on established roads. I mean, there was nothing had changed. It was just suddenly there was attention focused on this area. And the reason that was a problem was that they were trying to get rid of this cinder mine, and I think they were not doing everything. How can I say this carefully? It might not have been entirely the legal way that you would do this. They just kind of did it, thinking that, who would know? Well, ordinarily no one would know, but this phone booth became famous. And then I put up on the phone booth site, I put stuff about the mine and, what the family was going through and stuff. And so I think that was why they decided, well, we're going to have to just get rid of this booth.
Right.
So they did. They snuck in one night. It really was. It was in the middle of the night, and they snuck in and
well, it's not good.
Took off with it.
Yeah. Huh. So the other thing I'm thinking about is this. You mentioned that you actually went and in the book and actually answered phone calls from people. What kind of things did you talk about when people got on the phone? I mean, other than the obvious, are you really out there kind of stuff?
Yes, that was a common question. And it depended on whether they spoke English, of course, too, because people were calling from everywhere. And sometimes someone didn't speak English and you would just kind of laugh to each other. And
right.
Then they would hang up. But, it just depended. It depended on, how much alcohol had been consumed or, what somebody wanted to talk about. And sometimes it would just be a short thing and they'd say, well, I just wanted to see if this was a real thing. And then they would hang up. And then the next person, you'd talk to them for half an hour about, whatever was on their mind. I remember one lady called up and she had read about it in the newspaper, and then she dialed the number and she just said, well, she said, I'm an old lady and I just wanted to let you know that I think it's good you're doing this.
Okay. Okay.
I was like, well, thanks. That's great. Or you'd get like truckers would call up and they would tell you like they had done, they had hauled cinders from the mine or something, and they would tell you stories about that. And it was just, you just never knew. You pick up the phone and could be anybody.
Yeah. So you said the locals use the phone, but all the pictures that I've seen looks like that it was vandalized, obviously not by the locals because they would want to make sure it stayed in working order. When you were staying out there, did any other people come by and use the phone or want to use the phone, or were they just out there to cause mischief? I mean, what was the vibe like when other people than you showed up?
That really didn't happen.
Oh.
There weren't that many people going out there. And it took quite a bit of effort to get out there. So
really,
I can think of I think the only people who ever showed up there that we didn't know would be coming were two different times. National Park Service rangers showed up. That was about it, though.
Was it
there
illegal
were
for
other
you to
people
be
that
there?
were going out there to answer the phone and stuff, but
yeah. Was it illegal for you to be out there?
No. And in fact, that was the funny thing is like when the NPS came in, they had come in 1993, I think, and took over the area. And all their literature was trying to encourage people to come out there. So from their point of view, it would have made sense, to encourage this because it was really the only thing that was attracting people to come out from Los Angeles, for example.
Right. Yeah. The Mojave doesn't strike me as being something other than maybe a place to do stargazing or whatever. It's not a tourist mecca, I would imagine.
Well, it's great for stargazing because there's no lights out there.
Yeah.
but you probably wouldn't want to go in there without a 4-wheel drive, sort of thing. But
the roads were kind of nasty then.
At first, not so bad, but then there were some huge storms hit the area, and they washed sand over the roads. And sand is really hard to drive on. Like if you're not from the desert, you're not used to it. It's really hard to drive on and really easy to get stuck, and lots of people did. Right. There was an old fellow, though, that lived out there named Charlie Wilcox. He still lives out there. And just out of the goodness of his heart, he would drive his old red pickup up and down that road every day just to make sure nobody needed any help. And he pulled a lot of people's fat out of the fire.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very nice. All right. So you said that the booth was taken out 3 years after you ruined it. I mean, after it was, it was out 3 years after it got too popular and they didn't want people going out there. What happened to the phone number?
Well, the phone number I tried to get the booth itself. I was contacting the NPS out there because, I thought I would like to have it,
Right.
And they wouldn't allow it, and they destroyed it. That's what they say, that they destroyed it, and they probably did. But I said, well, can I have the number? And they said, well, you have to talk to the phone company. And when I called the phone company, they said no, but they were real weird about it. And I think probably because the NPS forced the phone company to take it out. Mm-hmm. And I think probably part of that agreement was that they were not to allow the number to live because I would have, of course I would have used it for all kinds of things.
Right.
So I tried the 3 succeeding phone regimes and they all said no.
That's a shame. So I read that part of the book and some of the Wikipedia page on this. Obviously somebody got the number.
Yeah. A fellow goes by the name of Lucky 225.
Right.
Or I don't know if it's Lucky 225. Either way. Somebody made a mistake at the phone company and included the booth's former number, which was supposed to be permanently retired, included it in a block of numbers that he acquired.
Okay. Wow.
So he's running a chat room kind of a thing on it.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I think there's 9 chat rooms.
Wow.
So you can call the booth number and chat with whoever's there. And he's also running an SMS service using that number also.
Okay. Maybe it wasn't in a block of like IPs, but instead of a block of phone numbers, and somebody didn't realize that number was in there or restricted or something. So
somebody screwed up.
So there's a Shell station just off of the 15 at Sema Road. And for those of you who SEMA, on the 15. So those of you who are driving up from San Diego or Bakersfield or that area, I used to drive the 15 quite a bit. I actually drove this road when I drove it, there was like Zizix Road, I think is how they pronounce it. Z-Z-Y-Z-X.
Yeah, Zizix.
Zizix. Well, yeah, I've been mispronouncing things all day. So, I never actually went down that road, but I just thought, that was a crazy, interesting name for a road. It's just a little, not a little, it's probably a lot past that. It's after Baker, the town of Baker. But if you are traveling to Hacker Summer Camp this year, and I was kind of bringing this up because I know Miss Berlin's going to be driving to Hacker Summer Camp because of her knee. Maybe she could go rent some big dually wheeled truck or something and drive it out to the phone booth and take photos. I'm sure that's still allowed, right? You can actually drive out there. It's just you got to have the proper equipment and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I rented an SUV because I have 3 people going with me. Well, 3 people total now. Wow. Driving. So
it'll only be
4-wheel drive.
I don't know. I'll have to find out when they give it to me.
Better find out, yeah. It's only going to be about 312 degrees Fahrenheit out there, so, make sure you take additional time. But, this is...
I wanted to ask, did either of you, were either of you aware of the booth thing going on when it was going on back then, or...
Well, Miss Berlin was probably
I was like in
12.
Middle school.
She was like 12 because she's a young punk. And
there were middle schoolers into it.
Well, when was it?
1997 to 2000.
Okay. Yeah, I graduated high school in 2002, so I wasn't really into computers then.
Yeah. In 97, I was in the Navy, and I didn't have a lot of access to computers. In 2000, I was overseas. I hadn't come back from Diego Garcia yet, so which is a fairly remote place as well. And we had phone booths on Diego Garcia, so that was a fairly remote phone booth as well. I bet that phone booth on Diego is still there. I hadn't heard about it actually until I saw this on Twitter, and I thought, well, that's a nice bit of, telephonic history right there that somebody might be interested in seeing. So, if you are, going to Hacker Summer Camp this year and you feel like you can, get out there, it's not that far. I mean, it's probably
it's not really that far.
Doable in a day, I would imagine. Let me see.
From Vegas, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, easily.
I'd say it's only
about 70 miles from Vegas.
Yeah. So, you go in the early evening or the early morning, and it's not going to be like, freaking hot. And, maybe you could go and check out the phone booth. So
a handful of
parties. Still there.
What's that?
The pole's still there.
Right.
Really? Well, that would make some interesting use. If it still has power and there's still a dial tone, if you had like one of the old lineman telephones, you could probably use the alligator clips and make phone calls.
I think someone tried that after it was taken out. And
Dang it.
People were trying everything, I think that didn't work.
I was always envious of those line guys with that handset thing. It was nice and orange.
Oh, yeah.
And so cool. They had such cool stuff on their waistbands. Yeah. So according to this, it's 90 minutes out there if you take the 15 down. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just 70 miles out of Vegas, so it would be, an hour or so to get to the exit, and then however long it takes you to drive 12 and a half miles on a sandy dirt road.
Yeah, and do the buddy system if you go. Don't go by yourself, because I don't want to be the reason that people.
Yes, definitely, and tell them at the exit that you're going.
Oh, yeah, that's probably good. At the Shell station there on the 15? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I don't
the former Stuckey's.
If I don't return in 2 hours, no.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. Probably Charlie'd still come out there and get you.
Oh, Miss Berlin. She posted a link on from Mono Price for the lineman's test set. So you can get one of the orange phones with the alligator clips.
It's only $73.
I know. Oh my God, that's so awesome. Wish I had a phone line in my house. I could make a legal phone. I mean, I could test to make sure if the phone call worked.
In theory, you can theoretically do it.
Yeah. So,
on the cover of the book, there's a picture of the line of poles, and that's actually from when they were. I found an old article in the AT&T magazine about putting in this phone line. They put all that entire line from Washington to Southern California. They put that in a year.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's probably some kind of, it wasn't like in the Great Depression, but it was like the Tennessee Valley Authority, or where you're putting people to work because they were unemployed, or, just public works jobs that, needed work. But that's amazing. I mean, especially from Washington State through, oh man, that was not a good place to be.
It'd be cool to find like some of the people that worked on it.
Yeah, that might be fun.
Yeah, it really would. They'd be pretty old. That would be really cool, though. I would love that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it had a super high priority because it was considered a military priority.
Right. Was there any military activity in that area at that time, or was it just the mine? That I can't imagine they did all of this just for the freaking mine.
No, they didn't do any of it for the mine. The mine was just coincidental.
Okay.
This again was just as a backup, to have a backup phone line along the coast in case the one closer to the coast got sabotaged. They were thinking that, Japanese might come over and sabotage the line, then they would have this one.
Right.
Although I don't know why you couldn't sabotage two lines, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see how like Telefreak or 2600 or anybody hasn't like gotten a group together to take a field trip during DEF CON.
I would definitely encourage them to do that. If I end up going to Hacker Summer Camp next year, I may end up just renting a car for or not a car, but a helicopter or something that would be easy to
hang glider.
Yeah. Hot air balloon or something. So
I ended up taking my own because I bought a phone booth just to have at my house. And DEF CON contacted me. This would have been 98, I think, or 99, to bring my phone booth to DEF CON so that they could use it for the social engineering contest.
Oh, that's cool. That would have been Mr. Noid was still running it, I think. That would have been when Mr. Noid was still running it, I believe. One of the organizers. Yeah, I'll have to ask him about that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Train of thought. So he asked you to bring the booth. Wait, these things aren't small and they're not light.
No, they're very heavy.
Yeah,
they're like a casket, basically. Well, I rented a van. And so on the way to drop it off in Las Vegas, of course, I took my booth to the Mojave Phone Booth so that they could meet.
Okay.
That's great.
Wow.
Because why wouldn't you? All right?
Right, of course.
Exactly.
That is completely something I would do.
Yep.
Yeah. And then from the booth, then I dropped it off in Vegas, and then I went back to Phoenix, but then I went back up for DEF CON.
Fantastic. Yeah. So do you still go to DEF CON?
No, that's the only time I went. I'm not a hacker or a.
That's okay. I'm not either. Miss Berlin, she's not a hacker.
But I really enjoyed it. I even enjoyed the stuff that I didn't understand. Like they had, I don't know if they still do this, but they had the TCP/IP drinking game.
Oh,
do you know about this?
No,
I do not.
They had experts on TCP/IP, including people who had actually developed it. So they were in a panel. And the idea was that the audience could ask them questions. They had to answer the questions without using certain forbidden words, including TCP/IP.
Right.
And if they did, they had to take a drink.
Nice. There's similar.
So they all got really drunk.
Oh yeah, I bet.
There are similar type of drinking games there. Hacker Jeopardy comes to mind, and other fun things.
Hacker Jeopardy's rough.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, So let's go ahead and tell people how they can buy the book.
The book is available from me, from the website Mojave Phoneboothbook.com. And Mojave is spelled Mojave.
Okay.
Mojave Phoneboothbook.com. Or you can go to deuceofclubs.com and there's a link also. Mojave,
is it PHONE or is it FONE?
Oh, it's FONE. I mean, PHONE. The Twitter is FONE because I ran out of letters. Mojave Phone Booth is one letter too many.
Right. So, okay. I was Googling around here because I accidentally, just looked for Mojave Phone Booth. There was a movie?
There was a movie. There was a movie made, yeah. Not about our experience, but kind of inspired by.
Okay. Because I was trying to figure out if Missy Pyle, you were played by Missy Pyle or Steve Gutenberg.
That would be awesome. I would love to be played by Missy Pyle. Maybe we can do very remake. Are you out there, Missy?
Right. I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes as well. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. And after they were done shooting, they gave me the prop phone booth.
Oh.
So I still have that. Sometimes I take that around. I took that to Palm Springs last November because Desert Oracle magazine was and Desert Oracle radio show. They had a live radio show in Palm Springs. So I brought the booth out there and we did an interview in the booth and stuff. That was fun.
Very cool. All right. Well, I hope everybody's enjoyed this little bit of esoterica that is not InfoSec related, in my opinion. I mean, I love to hear about the history of telephony and whatever. And this was just one of those things that kind of, jumped out and hit me. Ms. Berlin, do you have any other questions for Godfrey before we let him go?
No.
Awesome. All right. Well, I know I kind of sprung this on you at the last minute, so you've got plenty of time to read the book, though. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna read it.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So, Godfrey, thank you for joining us here on Breaking Down Security.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Right on.
It was fun.
Nice.